Unite! Alright everyone, welcome to Trainers Unite, a Pokemon Unite podcast. I'll be your host, Josh, aka JSide, joined by my co-host, Andrew, aka Attilio the Hun. Andrew, how you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good, Josh. How about yourself?
I'm doing alright, just getting ready to start this podcast with you, so let's have fun with it, shall we?
Let's do that.
Okay, guys, so this podcast is for any and all players of Pokemon Unite that are interested in a little discussion about the state of the game and any relevant updates, as well as our opinions and experiences with the game ourselves. Today, we're going to be talking about the general state of the game about 2 weeks now after launch, and exactly how balanced is it? We're going to mostly break it down into two categories. The first one is common complaints and our opinions, including the pay-to-win conversation going around the internet right now, as well as some quality of life changes that we would like to see, and talking about the current patch notes that are set that recently just dropped actually today. So, does that sound good to you, Andrew?
Yeah, that sounds pretty good. We all know about the notorious pay-to-win that's been going around on everyone making videos about it, but I'm looking forward to talking about that, plus the quality of life changes that we got coming up in this next patch.
All right, then, let's get started. So, the general state of the game at launch. Now, is the game balanced? The short answer, no. Is it fun? Usually. Is it fun with a group of friends? Absolutely. We'll get to more of the specific complaints that we're hearing a lot of, including our personal experiences, at the state of the game now before the first major balance patch, due to drop later today. But as of now, and by the way, as of now, Gardevoir is the only Pokemon added into the game since launch, right? That brings us to a total of 21 total Pokemon characters that you can choose to play as. Now, we wanted to get this podcast out before the first big patch, to really talk about how the game is starting, because we have a feeling it's going to change a lot. This game has so much potential, and we are looking forward to covering it right here with you guys on this podcast. So, we want to talk about the first major topic, common complaints, right? And our opinions on them, including the pay-to-win conversation. So, probably everyone that is listening to this podcast has already heard this at least once. Gengar is broken, right? And I do agree with this, but what are your thoughts on this, Andrew?
My gosh, Gengar is so broken that I forced myself to learn this character, so whenever no one is picking it, I pick it. Like,
right?
You have to have Gengar on your team in fear of not knowing if the other team's got Gengar.
Right, exactly. And actually, that is a good point I want to bring up later on knowing whether your opponents have a Gengar on their team. I want to talk about that later under quality of life. But yes, so Gengar, right? Just like you said, Andrew, people are picking Gengar just because they have to go against Gengar. And Gengar is so strong that the only way to really, counter him the way that some people understand is by picking Gengar themselves. Gengar has Hex as a spammable move, a move that comes up off cooldown instantly after hitting another Pokemon, basically, in its upgraded state. And he has many invincibility frames during the animation for Hex, high damage output, and a fast stealth burst damage unite move, right? Gengar's become a must pick in these higher ranks due to how strong his kit is. And people can theoretically counter him, can play against Gengar using a Pokemon that's plays to Gengar's weaknesses, as few as he may have. But it's hard to counter since there isn't a way to see whether the enemy team has a Gengar. So unless you're always playing as if the enemy team has a Gengar, which isn't always fun, right? Because maybe you don't want to do that, then there's no way to really say that you can counter him without being always ready, right? And I'm going to talk about more about this in our quality of life changes segment a little bit later, in revolving around character selection before the match starts. So do you have any other thoughts on this, Andrew?
Yeah, so Gengar is a Pokemon that, like you mentioned, spammable Hex move, and the only problems that Gengar ever has is if you're at Rotom. And if you're at Rotom, for some reason, the Hex just goes, if the Vespiquen in her combis are spawned, it goes just towards that instead of the Rotom for some reason. But it's also the fact that he can do it so often, because even if you miss the combo, you gotta wait like 3 seconds, which is almost nothing, before your Sludge Bomb is up and before even Hex is eventually up as well. And it's just something that is abused super high at the higher ranks. And the only Pokemon that I've seen that's consistent enough to counter it is Slowbro, but no one ever wants to play Slowbro. And it's just because Slowbro is one of the worst defenders, in my opinion, in the game right now. Because why wouldn't you pick Snorlax? Why wouldn't you pick Crustle at the moment? And it's just, no one wants to play Slowbro, and that's pretty much, in my opinion, the best counter against
Gengar, right?
Gengar right now with Telekinesis. And the other problem with Gengar is the fact that no one's picking those other 2 moves, and this is a whole thing with Pokemon Unite in general right now. They are only picking Sludge Bomb, Hex combo. And I know we'll talk about it later in the patch notes when it comes to Gengar and that as well, but that's my current state on Gengar at the moment.
Yeah, that telekinesis from Slowbro that allows him to grab one Pokemon and stop them from moving is really the only way to counter Gengar at the moment, because you just basically point and click and you can grab that Pokemon and not allow him to do anything. Other moves like Ninetales is Dazzling Gleam and things that done are skill shots that require you to not miss. And if Gengar is teleporting all the time using Hex, then it's really, really hard to time hitting him with that move to actually stun him, to be able to take him out of a fight. Exactly. All in the meanwhile, he's doing damage, and very, very powerful Pokemon right now. Though we will talk about a little bit about the patch notes later. Gengar is coming down a little bit, right? And like you're saying, the 2 moves that are being picked all the time, Hex and Sludge Bomb. Pokemon Unite, right now, at the beginning of its life cycle, most of the Pokemon have a move that is objectively better than their other move option. And a lot of people who play competitively will more than likely pick the objectively better move, whether it's for damage, whether it's for utility, and it's not worth picking the Pokemon's other moves. So you basically see every Gengar has the same move, every Ninetales has the same move, every Cinderace has the same moves. And that kind of defeats the whole purpose of having the variety of choosing different moves. And with this newest patch, you can tell that the developers are trying to focus on balancing the moves so that there are more options. They're actually bringing down Gengar's power in his more popular moves and bringing up his power in the less popular moves. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. But yeah, it sounds exactly like what we are hearing from complaints all across the board, especially that one about the auto-targeting of the Vespa Queen and things when you're by Rotom, because the same thing happened to me yesterday. We were playing yesterday and we experienced this. So very like even with auto aim and aim assist things turned off, the move tends to find its way to away from Rotom and toward the other mobs on the map. So yeah, maybe that'll change in the future. But the controls, being a controller-based MOBA, I think it's going to take some getting used to. There might be some options that might come down the road that might help us to be more accurate in our move selection, but we'll see how it goes. So Gengar, right? Very powerful. One of the biggest complaints out there right now. One of the other things I'm hearing about is Cinderace. Super powerful, very strong carry Pokemon, right? Ranged attacker, has the ability to do a lot of damage really fast to a lot of people. And I think a lot of people don't really understand how his kit works, which makes it really frustrating to play against. What do you think? Do you have any thoughts on Cinderace?
Actually, Cinderace is one of the few Pokemon that I haven't had as much problems with. But I do notice that it's pretty much just it's kind of got the Gengar problem with the move situation, like with Feint, because you take Feint. At least in my opinion, you take Feint as one of the 2 moves, and you don't take Pyro Ball. I don't think, because Pyro Ball is just not as good as it's escaping me, but the other move that Cinderace has. And
yeah, the flaming kick, blazing kick.
Yeah, the blazing kick, because you need something to also get away, plus the Feint. So it's like Cinderace has so much utility to get out of battles when it gets into bad situations, especially if you take eject as well, or eject button.
Right.
And then it just goes on the outside, and while you're focusing, or the Snorlax, which we'll talk about in a second as well, is dealing with the other opponents, you're just wailing away with your fireballs.
Yeah, Feint is, for those of you that don't know, Feint is one of Cinderace's moves that allow you to dodge attacks. You're actually invincible for a little bit of time. And when you come out of Feint, you gain extra healing off of your next couple of normal attacks. So very, very powerful move to get out of situations, get into situations, and dodge enemy attacks. Very, very strong move. So yeah, so Cinderace, yeah, for those reasons, is a lot of people's top pick for damage dealers right now. And he's also getting a little bit of a nerf to his power. But let's talk about another Pokemon that stuck out to me as very frustrating to play against, just in terms of the experience, which is Snorlax and his wall and his ability to push you around and make you feel like you pressing buttons is doing nothing. Well, what do you think about Snorlax, Andrew?
So Snorlax is probably the least favorite defender I have to go up against. And the worst part is I've played Snorlax and I just feel like I'm not good at Snorlax because I feel like I just don't do anything against the opponents. Meanwhile, when I play against Snorlax, and this is all of his moves. This is a Pokemon I think has actually done correctly. And what I mean by that is you could take Yawn or you could take the wall block. Both good. I think both are just as frustrating to go against because if you get hit with Yawn, you're asleep forever. And it is utterly the worst. And block, like I said, you're just getting pushed away. And it's also just really bad. So that Pokemon, I think, done well in the way where he's getting, use out of all his moves. I think Flail might be the least used of the 4 moves. Because I think, Body Slam or Slam, whichever one he jumps up there and, just butt pounds.
Right.
I think that's the move that ultimately gets used between Flail and that one. But I think between Yawn and Block, I've seen a fairly even amount of use. But yeah, I think the way to maybe fix that is just lower the amount of time on Block and Sleep or Yawn, because it is just too long. I feel like seconds in MOBAs feel like eternity.
Yeah.
So I think that's how I feel about Snorlax at this in this current meta.
Yeah, I mean, the Snorlax definitely needs some changes. I don't think there's anything that was particularly changed about him recently, but I think a lot of people are learning how to use him. It just feels like those people that really understand how to be a defender in this game are really good at using Snorlax, and that he feels almost too powerful in some situations. But as everyone is learning the game, we'll see if Snorlax continues to stick out as someone to really look out for. For me personally, I just have had so many frustrating experiences against it that I was wondering if anyone else had the similar experience. So, if you had a similar experience, drop a story into the comments below. Let us know about what is frustrating for you to play against in Pokemon Unite right now. All right, so moving on. So those are some things that we've heard, some things we talked about: Gengar, Cinderace, Snorlax, other Pokemon. There are things that are being complained about every Pokemon right now, I think. And, it really just depends on your experience. So that's a really key thing, I think, to remember, is that everyone has a different experience depending on what level you're at in the game, how much experience you have with MOBAs, how well you know all the Pokemon's moves. And I think as the game goes on, we'll start to see what emerges as frustrating and what needs to be patched and what needs to be changed. So, those are the things that people are complaining about. The next conversation that I wanted to move on to is the current meta, right? What are the most efficient tactics available? What is the thing that everybody is doing in Pokemon Unite to win, right? What are people fighting about? How are people doing it? How are people winning? To get straight to the point, one of the things that I've noticed is that even though Pokemon Unite is such a new game, people are still figuring out how to play it. And the developers have designed the game in a certain way. Of course, they expect you to play it in a certain way, but people will find the best way to prioritize objectives, to win the game. And one thing that seems to be very popular lately is to prioritize Dreadnought in the bottom lane whenever it's up. Dreadnought, when you take Dreadnought down, he gives your entire team, no matter where they are, experience and shields. So this can save your team by not only leveling them up and making them stronger and progressing their progression through the game, but also giving everybody a shield. So if they're in a mid fight, whether they're in top lane, whether they're in bot lane fighting for Dreadnought, they have an immediate advantage. And Dreadnought, until Zapdos comes up, is the number one priority. So Rotom also exists as an objective on the top lane to help you push your lane, but many people tend to ignore Rotom in favor of Dreadnought, and Rotom exists as sort of a secondary objective. So Andrew, what do you think? I want to ask you, what do you think of the way that objectives are played in the game right now? Like, what do you like, and what would you like to see in terms of objectives?
Yeah, of course. So let me reiterate your last point. This is pretty much in the higher elos, and when I mean higher elos, I mean rankings from expert upward, and more like middle experts, or when you're playing on full teams of 5.
Mhm.
When you're doing solo queues, sometimes this doesn't always happen because people are still trying to figure out the game, and it's probably their first MOBA, so they're trying to figure out just what to do in general. But yeah, I agree. So right now, Dreadnought is definitely the priority when it comes to team play in higher rankings. You definitely just either send your full team down right before he comes up, or you leave a defender or someone up top while the rest of your team goes and fights for Dreadnought. And once again, this is where Gengar comes in handy. He just hex and, fluffy tails the thing, and it pretty much disintegrates. And you just get the free XP and shield. And yeah, Rotom is just an afterthought. It's kind of a thing like, oh, we didn't get Dreadnought, let's try to get Rotom. Or if your defender's smart, they will try to solo it while everyone else is gone, because likely the other team has sent all 5. But what I would like to see come out later eventually is the fact that I want both to feel equal to get. For example, in League of Legends, there is 2 sides of the map with 2 mini boss objectives known as Scuttle Crab, which is or not Scuttle Crab, Shelly, which is the Rift Herald, which is kind of the equivalent of Rotom. And then you have the dragons. Let's actually even say Earth Dragon, which gives you a shield, which is like Dreadnought. And if you kill these things, you get those buffs to help do the respective thing, to push your side of the field, or to do, just give yourself some battle buffs. And I want them to balance it out where Dreadnought is not giving you such a big advantage that you just don't care about Rotom. Right? I want it to feel like, depending on which objective I take, the other team is going to instantly go for the other one, just to be like, okay, this one's just as good as at least we're trading for it. Because right now it feels like, oh gosh, we got Dreadnought, we're going to be super ahead. I guess we can get Rotom, which, maybe creates pressure, but by that time, the enemy team is already up trying to get Rotom as well, because you were down at Dreadnought trying to get Dreadnought.
Right.
So they need to make it in a way where both need to be contested evenly. Because right now, pretty much one team gets both, more or less.
Yeah, it's pretty weird to purposely know that ignoring an objective, one of the only objectives on the map, actually, it's okay to ignore it because it's not important. And the whole point to me of an objective in any game is to prioritize it. And you have to decide, part of the chess game that is strategy games like MOBAs, part of it is deciding when to make those decisions based off of which objectives you need, which ones are better. But it seems like Rotom is almost just not worth going for right now. So yeah, if Rotom, I just, now that we're talking a little bit about what could be better, maybe Rotom could give your entire team 20 points or 10 points or something like that, to give you an extra incentive to wanting to take Rotom and not letting it get taken. Yeah. So to prevent 5-on-5 fights, at exactly at the 7-minute mark, which is when Dreadnought spawns. So
yeah, or maybe even how Dreadnought gives you a shield, maybe instead of a Pokeball giving, he can give you a small attack boost plus he follows you.
Yeah, right. What he does. Exactly. It could be an opposite. It could be exactly that, and that would be really interesting to see a whole team with an attack buff fight with a whole team with a shield at the same time. But yeah, so that is the meta conversation. It's always ongoing. I think right now, for the 10-minute game that is Pokemon Unite, I think that it's fine. It definitely can improve, but right now, I think we're just kind of waiting to see changes. I think that's definitely going to change because Rotom really doesn't feel important. But right now, if you are playing, definitely prioritize Dreadnought. It is really important. It does more for your team than Rotom does. So the early scores, the early points that your team might get your team might lose from losing Rotom, it's probably negligible in the end once you've got to the 2-minute mark and you guys are fighting for Zapdos. Because your team, if you prioritize Dreadnought, will have more XP, will be ahead of the enemy team, and will be able to take out the enemy team in fights, especially around Zapdos. So the meta conversation, right? Now, talking about this last 2 minutes with Zapdos, we're not talking about Zapdos yet, we'll get there. But, but yeah, so things people are complaining about is that people tend to rage quit or AFK when they're losing, right? And I've definitely experienced this myself. When people are even I've seen at the 4-minute mark when we feel like we're losing. Some people like they've died maybe 3 or 4 times in the match and they just stay at the base and they don't move. And
it gets worse.
We don't know, of course, what these people are going through. If it's really like them being AFK because they're rage quitting, or if there's something going on, but it seems to be connected. And a lot of people tend to surrender very early as well, kind of giving up on the game before even that 2-minute mark. And that 2-minute mark is where the game is played, right? And we'll go more into depth in that later. But you could not have a single kill on the other team to the 2-minute mark and still win, right? Yep. So very, very important to remember not to give up in this game. Your team is counting on you, and if you are out early, then that means it is a guaranteed loss for your team because they're now fighting a 4v5, right?
Yeah.
One thing I also learned about is that the surrendering is anonymous, so it's hard to report if someone is surrendering super early. It's hard to tell who is the one that is being frustrated. I mean, sometimes it's obvious because they'll be sitting in the base and they'll be surrendering, but there is actually no in-game indicator that says who is surrendering. So that might, just for some people, they want to know. I think that, when you're on your teammates, I've never seen a game that doesn't tell you who's surrendering because, as a team, if like someone tries to surrender, then you want to maybe help that person get back into the game, right? That's really important. So maybe they're feeling demotivated. Maybe they want to surrender. But it's just one of the caveats that you have to deal with when playing with people you don't know that you're not talking to on voice, on comms. And any bit of information we can have to help our teammates would be really helpful. So,
and and I'd like to add, there's no reason to surrender this game except for one reason. There is one reason why you should surrender this game.
What's that?
If you were already behind and you lose Zapdos and your team gets wiped after you lose Zapdos.
Oh yeah.
After that, it's pretty much almost guaranteed you're going to lose that game. But and we'll talk about it more when we get to Zapdos. Actually, you know what? Let's hold off for me explaining anything else further until we get there.
Yeah, we definitely have a lot to talk about in the way of scoring and also talking about Zapdos itself. So we'll get there very soon. So rage quitting, AFKing, right? Don't give up. Play until the end.
Right.
Once you've played enough, you'll know when surrendering is the option, right? Just to get to the next game. But considering it's a 10-minute game, that 1 minute you're saving by surrendering is most likely not going to be worth it.
Nope.
But like Andrew said, in those moments, if you know, then you know, and if your team agrees, they agree, and you guys can surrender. But for the most part, do not give up. Now, there is something else I've heard about recently which surprised me. I haven't looked this up too much yet, but apparently it was confirmed that teammates and opponents could be bots in ranked games, right? This could be a computer-controlled player, not a real person, fighting in a game that determines your rank score, right, for your competitive skill level. The game automatically will put in AI teammates to control your teammates' Pokemon. And they're not people, they're AI, so they're just kind of going through the map. They're not really thinking about where everyone is, what the strategy is. They just go and they find someone, they farm, they attack. And and a lot of times that makes people think that their teammates are not paying attention to the game when actually it's not a real teammate at all. It's just a computer. Yeah. And I think that is, in my personal experience, unheard of as far as ranked games. I'm really surprised that for a game that emphasizes competition, to have a feature where from the beginning your teammate is an AI controlled computer. Yeah. It's different when, which in this game also exists, if your teammate ends up leaving, whether they're rage quitting, whether their internet goes out, the game asks you, do you want to replace that player with an AI? That can come in handy because it's better sometimes than your teammate just sitting in the base. But from the beginning, knowing that you're on a 4v5 and that one of your teammates is a computer, of course you don't know, but knowing that that's possible really makes me not want to play ranked solo. And, I can't always get a team of 5 people together. So I think that many people are calling for this feature to be fixed, whether that means getting rid of bots completely, which is probably the best bet, but otherwise letting us know if it's a bot, I think is also really important. So we'll see what happens in terms of this, but that is something I heard about, which really surprised me. Do you have any thoughts about that, Andrew? Real quick.
Yeah, so the whole thing with the bot situation, I also was kind of unaware.
Mm-hmm.
It was something that it just didn't struck me, but now that like it was brought into light, it makes sense. Like I've had moments where I thought like, how are you this bad in my rank? Which I'm only expert 5, but even there, it's still very prevalent that like something's going on.
Yeah.
Like,
So it's weird, right?
It blows my mind. It blows my mind that something like this is already happening in a game that just got released. So I think this is something that needs to just take care of it now, because I don't want to get to higher ranks than what I am now and experience a bot that causes me to lose the game.
Yeah, it's definitely not something I don't think anybody wants to experience. So yeah, bot teammates, got to watch out for that. Hopefully they will change it. We'll find out soon enough if they decide to take away these bots in ranked games. Speaking of higher ranked games, any ranked games, people are currently still trying to figure out what's the meta, what's the best thing to do, where should my Pokemon, my role go, should I go top, should I go bot, should I be in the middle in the jungle. There are people who are adamant about playing one role, whether they want to improve, whether they think that's where they should be going as the Pokemon they're playing. A lot of people are tending to, for the lack of in-game pre-chat, or if you're not communicating with friends, there's no way to pick your role before going into queue. People are choosing conflicting lanes with their teammates, and when they can't figure out who should adapt to who, they both go there, and that ends up throwing off the team's rhythm, whether there's 3 people top and no one in the jungle, or there's 2 people in the jungle. Basically, the team ends up taking a hit somehow, whether it's one teammate or both teammates have not enough XP, people are not where they're supposed to be at the right timing. Right now, people are still trying to figure out what's best, but people basically aren't being flexible in online, in ranked, or even not in ranked. I think even in normals, people tend to try to go somewhere, and then other people also called it, and nobody can decide who to adjust to. So I think, my personal advice and hope is that if you're playing alone, that you will try your best to adjust to your teammates. And if someone calls something first, you switch roles or try something new. Obviously in ranked games, just like in any ranked game that involves roles, if someone else calls the role that you originally wanted, I think that you should be ready to at least try other roles. You should have other characters in mind. Oh, if I can't play the character I want to play, then I should play this character. And you should have that in mind before going into a game so that you're ready to adjust. Right? You're ready to adjust to something that you're ready to play mentally and maybe even skill-wise. Do you have any thoughts about this, Andrew?
Yeah, so my rule of thumb, ever since the dawn of time of me playing in the end of Season 1 of League of Legends, I have always tried to have at least, when I finally figured out what a jungler was, which, if you don't know, a jungler is the role that goes in the jungle. They don't go to a designated lane. It's kind of like the midsection in Pokemon Unite, as a reference. When I learned about that and learned about all the different roles in the game, I tried to have at least one character that I felt comfortable on. Not best at, but felt comfortable on, or had at least knowledge of their kit. And I've done the same thing here in Unite. For example, I primarily try to play Gengar in this current meta just because it's Gengar. But if someone else picks Gengar or another speedster because they're like, I really want to go in the middle, I'll either pick Machamp or even Crustle. And you just gotta be flexible. Just be flexible with your teammates. Because if you don't, you just end up fighting and you lose the game. Or someone just will AFK and sit in base because they didn't get what they want. There are people out there that are going to be toxic. That's just the way of life it is on the internet and games and everything. So they exist. And you just need to adapt and play the best to where your team can win.
We'll definitely try to do our best. We want to get everyone to just have fun playing this game. It's a really fun game, and just kind of be ready. We're asking you to mentally be ready for when you experience people that aren't ready to have fun and are kind of getting in the way of that. There is always something you can control, so I definitely recommend doing it, and you will have a much better experience playing this game and having a lot of fun, whether you're by yourself or you're with a team of friends. So thank you, Andrew, for the comments.
Of course.
Now, so our last part of this section here is we're going to talk about Zapdos, and then we're going to talk about pay to win. Okay, we are coming up on about halfway through the show right now, so it's a little longer than I anticipated, but hopefully you guys are enjoying the content and let's get to talking.
Let's do it.
So let's talk Zapdos.
We're gonna be here a while.
So let's try to make this as concise as possible. Now, Zapdos spawns at 2 minutes before the game ends. Right, the timer is at 2 minutes. Zapdos spawns. Rotom and Dreadnought, if they are on the map, they will despawn. And the thing is, when you kill Zapdos, when you take him down, you take the last hit on Zapdos, your team then gets 20 points. Everybody gets 20 points. If you're carrying the max amount of points, then you stay at the max amount of points. But if you are carrying any less, you get 20 more points. And if you probably know by now, but at the 2 minute mark, no matter whether you have Zapdos or not, it is double points for everybody. Which means basically everybody gets 40 points, right? Now this is really important for when you are trying to score. If you are really behind, that is 40 points times 5 people. That's 200 points, right? That is, you could spend the entire first 8 minutes of the game trying to get 200 points, and then the other team takes Zapdos and they just go over you 200 points. And it's really important because Zapdos not only gives you those points, but Zapdos makes your enemy team's goals defenseless, which means it takes no time to charge when dunking those points into the goals. Now, Zapdos is much like mechanics seen in other MOBAs. Zapdos is supposed to be an objective that helps the team that is behind make a comeback, or helps the team that is ahead seal the deal and finish out the game. Now, me personally, and I want to talk about my thoughts here first, I think that Zapdos is really strong. And I think everybody can agree that Zapdos wins the game, whether you're behind or ahead. And the interesting thing about that, to me, is when you realize that if your team is ahead, sometimes the goal is just to protect Zapdos and not let the enemy team get him. And when you're behind, you want to try to force Zapdos because you need Zapdos to win to get ahead of the other team. And of course, there are a lot of different situations that this can happen in. But Zapdos it's really frustrating when you're playing and you're playing without communications and you're trying to communicate to your team, hey, we need to get Zapdos, we need to do something about Zapdos. I think that the game is early, and I think that a lot of people haven't exactly figured out how powerful Zapdos is yet. But it's really important that your team is aware of Zapdos and what is happening with Zapdos at the end of the game, because you might have been doing really well the whole game, but the moment you lose Zapdos, you just lost the game. That situation happens so many times. It's not a guarantee. Just because they get Zapdos doesn't mean that they guaranteed win, but it is very, very difficult to defend against Zapdos. So, Andrew, do you have any ideas of Zapdos' mechanics, how they should be tweaked, things that you think, any changes you think need to be made, or any changes that you want to see?
So right now Zapdos is just the end-all be-all, and from experience yesterday, if you mess something up, that's the whole game. Like, we were winning by so much, and then we decided, hey, let's just take it, and we lost it. And we ended up losing the whole game. And the team we were facing, not that great. They got really lucky, in my opinion, and we just made a misstep. But things that we could change to Zapdos, it's really hard to say without neutering him completely. But I think maybe one thing we could do, instead of 20 points, maybe only 10. That way it's across the entire team, it's 100 points instead of, doubled it.
Yeah.
And I don't know, because you could say, oh, we'll just take away double points from the last 2 minutes. Yeah, but then that gets rid of the whole comeback mechanic altogether, which, for teams who were really falling far behind, why play those last 2 minutes? So it's really hard to say how to balance out Zapdos, because I do think Zapdos should do what it does. It should do the fact that it unlocks all the gates for you to auto-dunk. I think that is a feature that should stay. Double points should stay, I think, because that is the last 2 minutes, and comeback mechanic. So really the thing I think you could do right now is take away some of the points it initially gives you. And because sometimes players are already, got points saved up. Because they weren't able to score most of the game if you're really trying to get Zapdos. That's the biggest thing I think that you could do right now with Zapdos and his current state and what he does, is really just lower the amount of points you get.
You know, it's interesting. You gave me an idea. So the points that he gives you very strong. It's almost like that they forgot that they have double points at the end, and maybe they
Yeah.
actually wanted you to have 20 points, but it's actually 40 points.
Mm.
But you know, with the I found out recently that you can score in the goals that you haven't gotten to yet. So even
Mm.
though you haven't gotten all the way to the center goal in front of your opponent's base, you can score there, right? Even
Mm.
if you have Zapdos, you can just instantly score. And I think maybe that might be a little strong. I think
Mm.
it kind of ignores the whole point of having the lanes in the first place. So I know one thing I thought of was maybe they keep the points, or maybe they do give less points. But then maybe Zapdos only makes the most outer goals,
Yeah.
defenseless,
That's a good
right?
idea. Mm.
So that way if you can take Zapdos quickly, you can push toward the enemy base faster, and you can score more. Now the interesting thing about it is because the outer goals and not the center goal have limits to how much you can score.
Yeah.
You can't just instantly dunk all your points and get as many points as possible. It's going to depend on who's carrying how many points and if that's enough to end that goal and to break that goal. Because if they destroy the goal, then you have to move on to the next goal or the middle goal, and that might, it gives you an advantage, but it doesn't give you the winning. Like, it's not like if you have that, you're not guaranteed to win, but it gives you a huge advantage. And I think that that's really important because right now it feels like you're guaranteed to win in most cases, but if you take Zapdos with enough time left.
Yeah,
So,
that's actually really good. I really like that. It gives you because more often than not, you just see a 500, 600 point jump in
yeah.
the enemy team. So yeah, to
Ooh.
limit it to only the outside gates, I think would actually balance that out pretty quickly. Like, it's still important to get it, but
Yep.
it limits how much it is just a game breaker or like
Right.
win or lose. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
because
actually really
if everybody has 50 points and you get Zapdos and it's double points, and everybody just runs to the center goal in front of the enemy's base,
Yeah.
and there's no limit on that goal, then you can theoretically get 500 points off of your entire team scoring. But if you go to the outermost goals, you don't have to take any time to dunk. Like, you have the Zapdos buff, you can just dunk into the goal, and if you have 50 points, you get 100, but then the goal breaks.
Yeah.
So now you got 100 points more than you had before Zapdos, and you were able to score it quickly because of the Zapdos buff. But now you have to go to the next goal in order to get more points. And in most cases, that 100, 200 points made on the next goal after getting Zapdos is pretty much enough to tip you over even if you're really behind, right? Because there's not really ways to score so much, because double points is a lot, right? Double points is, and at the beginning of the game, you only cap at 30 points, and then 40 points, and then 50 points. So at the end, when everybody has 50 points capped and you have double points, it kind of becomes really like the first 8 minutes of the game is not important. Right? And the way that the game is played right now, it's like you spend 8 minutes preparing for Zapdos. And I think if you think about it that way, it is interesting and it does work in times, but sometimes it just feels a little bit like one-sided on the team that gets Zapdos, because there are times, especially in my experience with League of Legends, where if you get the Baron Nashor buff, which is the buff that is basically the same as Zapdos, it helps you to close out the game or to come back. It's the timing is really important. If you guys try to take Zapdos and everybody dies, then you lose, and that's and maybe at that point you already made the wrong decision. You guys ran in, everybody died, and so now your goals are all wide open and they have double points. So then at that point you basically lost. But if someone dies trying to get Zapdos, but then you can salvage the situation, then Zapdos shouldn't be like, oh, we got it, so we can just end the game now.
Yeah.
Because even though everybody's still alive on the other team, because now it seems like you've got too much power in this objective, where like I don't know, it just seems like there should be more. It seems like it's a little bit too much in some situations. So I don't know what the right change is. I don't know what they're going to do to change it, but I think that many people agree that there needs to be a tweak. There needs to be something changed. So we'll see what it is in the future, and we have high hopes that it's going to be something that everybody can understand a little bit easier than the current situation. So that's our Zapdos talk. Feel free to comment how you feel about Zapdos and what you think should be changed. We'd love to keep spitballing ideas and talking about how Pokemon Unite could get better, and how the Zapdos experience could change.
And tell us about your worst Zapdos experience.
Because that's a good one.
Because let me just say, my worst Zapdos experience: the enemy team gets Zapdos. I'm trying to recall in a bush, and the lightning zap that comes with them kills me, and it pretty much ended the game for us.
That lightning zap that's really strong.
Yeah, and I forgot about it. I forgot that was even a thing. I was like, oh, I need to recall to help protect the base because they just got Zapdos, and and then I die, and then I'm pretty much out for the rest of the game.
Yeah, Zapdos experiences. Everybody has probably some stories about it, and we would love to hear it, and we would love to talk about what could have been better. And do you feel it's fair? Do you feel that it should be different? Let us know. So great about pay to win.
Woo.
Now, okay, so there's a lot of things. We are, man, we're running close to almost an hour now, so we should probably pick up the pace. But as far as pay to win, so there's a lot of videos about this going around with, people say proof and other things, but here we don't agree with the philosophy to purchase a competitive edge in any video game, especially if it's going to be a game that many kids and many people's first entry into the MOBA genre is going to be, right? It's Pokemon, it's got a friendly atmosphere to it, but paying to have an immediate advantage over your opponent isn't really something we want to see in competitive games, right? In games in general.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of people, there's a lot of sides going to this. Some people either don't understand it very much, they don't play MOBAs that much, or maybe they look at the amount of stats and things that you get from these pay to win aspects, and they think it's not that important. But there are many things that change the gameplay around those buffs, around those power-ups that you get just from paying for your held items to be upgraded, right? So the pay to win aspect in Pokemon Unite, if you haven't already heard, is that each Pokemon comes equipped with held items, or you can buy held items to equip to your Pokemon. Buying the held items is not a problem. Everybody can do that with the currency that they give you just for playing the game rather quickly. But each item can be upgraded up to level 30. And to upgrade to level 30, you need a lot of resources. And those resources take a really long time to level up.
Jeez, really long time.
And if you level them up without paying any money, then you can have your attack increased by 100, or your attack percent increased by 7, or whatever. There's different kinds of numbers here that come into play. And if you wanted to level up the 3 items that your held Pokemon can carry, someone on Reddit did the calculations, and it's over a year. A year to play the game with the amount of currency that they give you right now, to get all of your 3 items leveled up to 30.
Now, is this just 3 items also? Not all the items in the game? Jeez,
nope,
so you're only upgrading to get one specific Pokemon ready.
Exactly. So each Pokemon can carry 3 items. If you carry 3 items, and you want to upgrade them, it'll take over a year without paying. With paying, it would take you $40 about per item. So it's about $120 per Pokemon to level them up all the way in 20 minutes, when it would take you over a year to do without paying, right? Immediate advantage for money. And like Andrew just said, using these items is very specific to the kind of Pokemon that you're playing, because some Pokemon use physical attacks, some Pokemon use special attacks, and some of these items cater to those different stats.
Yeah.
Now, not every Pokemon will use the same item effectively, so you have to use different items. So if you have 3 items that you need to level up on one Pokemon, it's going to cost you $120. Then you want to play a different Pokemon, and none of those items you leveled up work on this new Pokemon. So then you have to level up 3 new items, and that's another $120 or another year and something, right? And now, to be honest, I'm sure that they will have events in the future that give you maybe these resources, that maybe give you, more points to be able to upgrade your items. But at the rate that they are right now, without anything announced so far, it will take that long for something that you could pay for and have an immediate advantage of, and a lot of people are doing that. So, a lot of people like us are worried about the future of Pokemon Unite for paying to win. Now, like I said, the buffs that the items give you can be considered minor when looked at from a numbers perspective, but there are some videos and things on YouTube that you could look up that show you that the gameplay of a MOBA, right, revolves around playing the game and surviving with a sliver of health and split second waiting for cooldowns to come off their cooldown timer. And these things are what those items affect, right? These items affect that you have just that much more health, just that much more faster abilities, that much more damage. And that gives you an advantage in so many different situations, multiple times in one game, even across that 10 minutes. And a lot of people have discovered this. This gives the game a bad reputation for a lot of people, but I still believe, and we still believe, that there's so much potential in Pokemon Unite. And it's still very early, so we're hoping that they fix it. One of the things we wanted to talk about, just really quickly, is if they somehow get rid of this payment system. Let's say, like, they listen to us, they get rid of this payment system, this pay-to-win system for held items. What would they do instead? Would they refund items to people who spend money on it, give them back some credits? Would they change the way that you level up the held items? Is it going to be like experience based? Is it going to be time based? What do you think would be something that they could do, Andrew?
Well, like you mentioned, I think the ultimate thing would be just level up over time. But even then, it's just like, oh, well, if I'm not playing as much and I just want to casually go into a game, I'm going to automatically have, a disadvantage. It's really hard to say. I think the best thing for them to do right now is get rid of the option. Because I didn't even know this existed until I just tried it one day for some reason. Because I was like, oh, you can only pay for item enhancers with tickets. And, oh, you can only get tickets by playing the game. Oh, it's not really pay to win. Why are people saying this? But then when I didn't have enough tickets one time and I pressed A, it said, you can use the gems instead of tickets. And that's when I was like, I see now.
Right.
Simply get rid of that option. Like, why is it there?
It's really surprising because the MOBA genre right now, most of the games like League of Legends have no system like this. And this is actually developed by the same company that owns League of Legends, Tencent.
Yeah.
So they, it's surprising that they would put this into a Pokemon game of all games. Because it's really unnecessary. And I'm really hoping that they do something about it, because it really does leave a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths for the accessibility of this game and the principles that this game operates on. Really just trying to get money from you so that you can be better than everyone else. Like, there are a lot of mobile games that have this same approach for the money, and a lot of people really don't agree with it. So I also personally don't agree. I think if you want to play a game, the thing that really works for a lot of people, especially for a brand like Pokemon, is paying for cosmetics. If you make really good cosmetics, people will pay for it, and that can get your game going, making really good income without any sort of destruction to the competitive environment of your game. So I'm hoping that they are able to fix this relatively soon.
Yeah, because as a paying customer of League of Legends myself, I have spent well more than free to play on League of Legends. Just on skins. Like, I'm a huge fan of esports, and the biggest thing that I have spent money on is the world skins that come out every year for the world champions of League of Legends. If you do that for Pokemon Unite, if there's like a world championship, which I'm sure they'll just tack on Unite to the Pokemon World Championships they do every year for VGC trading card game, all that, you can make tons of money. And I think just get rid of that system, and maybe even, and you can disagree with me if you want on this, Josh, but maybe even get rid of like going into rank, like level cap it, like at 20, because I think leveling up their things to 20 is not too bad. Cap it at 20 for ranked, or even maybe 15 for ranked. Do what you do for VGC by limiting a Pokemon's level to 50, and if it's past level 50, you scale it back to 50. Do that with these items. Scale it back to a certain level so it's not that big.
Yeah. I mean, I think that is easily one of the changes they could make, and I think it would make a lot of people happy. So that's it for our complaints and our opinion section based off of the things that people are saying in the community right now about Pokemon Unite after its first 2 weeks. So we've got about an hour, right? And we're in about an hour in, and this is a really long. I think this is a really long podcast because it is the first one of this game on its release date, and there's a lot of things to talk about. And from now on, of course, we'll be talking about more specific things, but I think that these things are really important in terms of the game's health going forward. So, hopefully you guys are enjoying the conversation. If you are, please, comment and let us know what you think. Let's move on to quality of life changes. Right. So, of course, the first thing is getting rid of the pay to win system. Right. This is what we talked about. I think that many people want to see this prioritized, as well as removing the weekly EOS coin limit of about, I think, 2,100 coins. I think is the limit.
It depends on your level. It's actually less when you're lower level. Yeah, it's like I remember when I first started, it was like 1,000.
So there you go. So having those, the limit on the coins means that you're limited per week. You're forced to play without earning anything towards unlocking new Pokemon, unlocking new characters. And I believe that this is because the game is early and that they want people to play it more, and they have a very small roster. They only have 21 characters and they're giving away free characters, that they want to stop everybody from unlocking all the characters right away and getting bored. But at the same time, I think that limiting it really makes you feel, like I said, like you're earning nothing for your, for playing, and that you can't, like, for example, if I want to just earn a bunch of coins and save up for the Pokemon that are coming that I do want, then I can't do that. And I have to wait for the weekly cap to be removed or for it to go up from my level. So I think that as a free-to-play game, people do want to see that limit gone as well. I think that if you don't play an excessive amount, you're not going to hit that cap anyway, so that's probably fine. But I think many people are having a lot of fun with this game, playing with friends, and they want to unlock more Pokemon. They want to play their favorite Pokemon and try new ones, and so this limit really kind of stops you from being able to do that, as well as earning cosmetics, right? So yeah, I think that'd be really nice if they were to remove this limit. Right, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much hitting it right on the head. It's kind of a problem, and it boosts the pay to win more, because you're giving people who are willing to put money into the game the chance to get characters faster. And it just seems more predatory, because, like, what a 5-year-old Jimmy who loves Pokemon say, "Mom, I want all the Pokemon in the game." She's not gonna think one way or another, more than likely. Just like, all right, here's your Pokemon. And it's very gross. It feels bad. And I hate to say that with Pokemon, because I love Pokemon. I've grown up with Pokemon. I want to see it succeed. And in fact, this is probably my favorite MOBA now, just because of how fast it is and how easy. Like, Wild Rift promised me that I was going to have quick games. They are not quick games. This is what I wanted. So,
plus, there's Pokemon.
Yeah, plus it's Pokemon. So, like, to cap me, someone who's willing to put in extra games more than normal, it hurts. It stings. Like, it's not. And I think they need to just get rid of that weekly limit. League of Legends never did it. This isn't that game. This is Pokemon. And if you ruin this now, that's your own fault. So
yeah, it's going to be really difficult to come back from this later, once people already quit because they've decided that they hit the cap every week and they're playing and they want to go play something else because they've hit the limit. So we'll see what happens, and hopefully they give us more freedom in the game to play as much as we want, kind of thing. So quality of life, right? Getting rid of pay to win, getting rid of the coin limit, seeing a scoreboard in game to be able to make better decisions. Like, why don't we have this?
I played in both betas, and this was a complaint that has been said during both betas, and you want to know how they responded to it? They put the really struggling thing. That wasn't in the beta.
Oh.
So that was the response to, or if it was in the beta, maybe I played too early in the morning and I just didn't see it. But yeah, that was the response, and I'm just like, this isn't what we asked for. We want to see a number that lets us know how much are we behind and what we need to do, and stop, like, maybe not prioritize on killing, but more prioritize on scoring. And I get it. Maybe they do it so it doesn't discourage people just sit in base, be like, oh, we're too far behind, we can't win. I get it, but at the same time, I don't get it because it's dumb, and
Yeah.
especially
It's a
for
score-based game. We should be able to see
yeah.
the score, you know?
And then also, if you plan to make this an esports eventually, that's dumb not to see
Yeah.
it.
Well, okay, well, actually, so about this, I just found this out just before this podcast. They released recently with this patch that came out today, a spectator mode
Spectator, right?
temporarily
Yeah,
to
I saw
test
that
it.
too.
Yeah, spectator mode has the score on the top of the
Oh, does
screen.
it?
It
Oh,
does, and it has it in the exact way I would want it to be in the real
in
game.
game. Oh my
Yes,
god.
and it has like the left side is your team and the right side is their team. It's blue and orange, and you see it as it's happening. And I think that in order for people to be better at the game, to make better decisions, especially even people on comms, right? Instead of having to count how many points the enemy has, or not count and just say we're gonna get Zapdos at the end and dunk no matter what.
Yeah.
I think that knowing the score would help us make better decisions, and I really hope that they decide to bring the scoreboard in game to live faster. So
Yeah. I want to know who at Pokemon or Tencent made that decision because I just want to slap them across the face.
Double slap, right?
Double slap.
By the way,
Wigglytuff out.
so we want to see the scoreboard. And I've heard some conversations about drafting systems for ranked, right? And so this is what I was talking about at the beginning of the podcast about being able to see the enemy's Pokemon before going into the match, right? Mm-hmm. Now, seeing what Pokemon the enemy teams are choosing is really important because it lets you pick and build your team to counter, to prepare for the enemy team. And if it's a draft pick where like one side picks first and the next side picks twice, like kind of like in other competitive games, all competitive games across the board use a draft system like this for competitions. That's part of the strategy, right? It's like a mini game at the beginning of the game that helps you to decide how well is the game going to go from here. What can we do? Let's start strategizing early. And I understand that there's only 21 Pokemon, but we said with the problem with Gengar being really broken. So how do we play against Gengar? We have to know that there's a Gengar on the other team, or we have to always assume. And we wouldn't have to always assume if we could see the other team's Pokemon while we're all picking at the same time, right? And of course, a ban system eventually, once we have more Pokemon characters, I think is like a no-brainer. It's something that is very normal in competitive scene. Also another part of the strategy. So, I mean, what are your thoughts on having like a draft system like this, Andrew?
Well, definitely when implementing the draft, they do the same thing in other games where you can't have doubles of a Pokemon in the game. Meaning, if one side picks Gengar, there won't be another Gengar in the game. And that's something which I get it. There's only 21, 22 if you count Blastoise, who was playable in the first beta on mobile. Yeah, we only have 22 Pokemon, and maybe having 10 unique Pokemon in a game might be stretching, but I also don't think it is. Like, you've got at least 2 Pokemon in each role, but I guess the only thing they're worried about is like maybe a troll team picks like all of the same. Someone like, and just ruins the experience. So I get it. Right now, maybe having singles of a Pokemon, you have to wait until maybe 30 Pokemon or 40 Pokemon are out, but that has to be done. Like, you're going to have to do that if you want the best competitive out there. Because honestly, right now, what's the difference between rank and normals besides your rank?
Yeah, there isn't one. So,
there isn't one. It's the exact
including
same.
the bots showing up for you. So hopefully these are some things that we see in the future implemented as we see, hopefully, Pokemon Unite getting to a more center stage on esports. The popularity of Pokemon in general, the accessibility on the Switch, I think it could get really far really fast. So let's just hope that it comes. Yeah, it's Pokemon, right?
You have the fans, you have the player base, and even a bunch of their VGC players are jumping to Pokemon Unite really fast because they see it out there. They see the League of Legends, they see the Dota, and they're like, we want our game and our series to be like that too.
Yeah, Pokemon fans unite, right? Trainers unite. Yeah, name drop. So how about this? Another quality of life thing: picking lanes and roles before queuing for the match. Now, this is something that many MOBAs have built into their matchmaking systems. Usually after the fact, most games don't start out with it, but it is something that most players ask for because they want to practice and they want to play specific roles. Going into ranked games, going into even normal games, they want to be able to play at their best and match with other people who also want to play at their best in their role. Now, many people aren't really able, as we mentioned earlier, to adjust to their teammates. And so people conflict and they both choose the same role, but they can't decide who should go first. So it ends up making the game experience worse for the entire team, usually. And maybe this could fix that as well. But the game has the set roles. It has attacker and defender and support and all these things. But there's no set meta for a team composition. I mean, unlike Overwatch or some of these other games where they say you have to have 2 attackers, you have to have 1 defender, you have to have a speedster. That's not something that the game has decided, which I think is okay. I think right now at the state of the game, it's pretty free form. You can kind of just figure out what kind of team you want to play. But eventually, I think that being able to queue for a match ahead of time, or at least with your preference just shown on the screen, I think that would help a lot of players kind of ease into playing their role, or being able to adjust. If you pick like a fill role, would be really helpful for the health of the game and for the matchmaking in general, right? So what do you think, Andrew?
I mean, just minimum give us that, like what you mentioned. I know Wild Rift just recently implemented as well in rank, which was, for a game like League of Legends, you should have had that day one. I'm sorry, that was a misstep, and I get it. They were trying to fix queue times because it's a mobile game, but at the same time, you needed it. It's something that causes confusion and honestly creates toxicity in case someone didn't get the one they want, because there's no like set thing. So minimum, what you need to do is you put your preferences that you want, and when you get into that Pokemon Select or Champion Select, however you want to call it, it shows what lane you're in. Like, it doesn't need to say, oh, your speedster side, because honestly, if it's like anything, the people are going to create the meta. Nautilus in League of Legends was supposed to be the role jungler. He is never played in jungle, ever. So it's like these roles that they're given to Pokemon, they're very subjective, and they can easily be put anywhere you want. Like, we have a friend, Kira, who has played like mid lane or jungle Vulpix, Ninetales, and it does really well. It actually does pretty decent. So it's honestly, the roles I don't think really need to be worried about showing that you can only play these things. I think mostly as long as you're given like which lane you're in, I think that at least shows that, okay, I need to play something that would work well here.
Yeah, but that's the thing, right? It's like, it's still not decided. Like, should there be 1 defender up top? Should there be 3 attackers bot? Like, that's not decided. So it's hard, you know. So right now it is. But as far as I understand it, almost every Pokemon, if not every Pokemon in Pokemon Unite so far, is totally fine being in the jungle. Every Pokemon has good attack abilities, good defense abilities, things that help them. Yeah, they help them able to be pretty much anywhere. And I think that that's part of the fun of Pokemon Unite, is that it doesn't matter so much if you can't do a certain thing, because you can always make up for it in another way. And I think that right now, as we're figuring it out, we're going to have fun figuring it out, but it's going to be frustrating sometimes, especially when we don't know what the best way to play the game is yet. Right?
And I think, honestly, just one extra side note, that creating teams and stuff like that is going to be easier, because you're not limiting like, oh, I need this specific type of player. Because honestly, with it being so free form, it gives a lot of people opportunities to join things and be a part of things that, in games like League of Legends, they might not have been able to.
Right, exactly. Right, it's more fun, right?
So more fun. It's fun.
Yeah, and we want the game to be fun for everybody. All right, so quality of life. Pokemon Unite does not tell us the base stats of any Pokemon, right? We have the main menu of just a bunch of stars that say this Pokemon's really good at offense, this Pokemon has good movement, this Pokemon has very poor defense, right? And those don't tell us anything concrete. They don't tell us Gengar compared to Gardevoir, who has better attack and by how much, right? So they just say this Pokemon's good at attacking, this Pokemon is bad at defending, or has bad defense, has low defense. So, the only stats that we know for sure by number are the stats that we add to our Pokemon with the held items that we mentioned before, the ones that are pay to win. Those held items say specifically how much they increase the stats by, whether it's plus 40, plus 50, or plus a percentage, right? And then on top of that, what extra effects they might have. It tells us so that we know how much more of those stats that we have, but we don't know the base stats. We don't know what to add them to. So if I get plus 7% crit rate. I don't know how much crit rate Cinderace has at the beginning. So do I now have 7 crit rate? Does everyone start with 0? Or is it, is there a built-in crit rate number for just Cinderace compared to other attackers? Or do all attackers have the same crit rate? We don't know. So that's something I think that, if the game wants to eventually get to a more competitive scene and they want the game to live longer, they want people to really dive into what's possible in terms of building Pokemon a certain way, I think they kind of need to give us those base stats eventually. And we're hoping that is something that comes in the future, right? Even with the patch notes, there's no specific numbers on there either. So it makes it, it doesn't help us at all in terms of understanding how much the characters were actually changed.
In English.
Yeah, in English, right? So on that note, the patch notes in English and in the patch notes in Japanese from the official Pokemon Unite website are different.
Why?
Now, why exactly? That's a good question. Question that nobody can answer at this exact moment. But for example, I did mention that the patch was dropping today. Actually, already dropped by the time that you're listening to this. And Gengar is one of the most complained about Pokemon. Gengar's changes in the English patch notes say basic attack, bug fixes, Shadow Ball, damage dealt to opposing Pokemon increased. Okay, so got it. Cool. So bug fixes on basic attack, Shadow Ball, damage dealt to opposing Pokemon increased. By how much? We have no idea. But we know that it was increased. For his moves, Hex, move downgrade. What does that mean? Only information we get. Dream Eater, move upgrade. Okay, so
cool. How?
Hex is worse and Dream Eater is better now. So by how much? Is it not worth using Hex anymore? Is Dream Eater the best move ever? No idea. But if we look on over at the Japanese website, Gengar, so Gengar's just using Google Translate to understand it a little bit easier. But Gengar's Shadow Ball says the same thing, increase the amount of damage done to the opponent's Pokemon. But Hex, the amount of damage done to the opponent's Pokemon is reduced, and the invincibility time when activated has been reduced.
Why wouldn't you just say that?
That is a lot of information to just leave out on the English one, right? That is very concerning in a way, I guess. Why wouldn't they tell the English audience what the abilities are actually being changed by? And and for Dream Eater, it says that its speed, the move speed is increased, right? So it's faster now. But they don't say that in English. They just say upgrade and downgrade. And so that's something that some people are just really worried about because, if all the patches in detail are going to be in the Japanese side, but in English we just get these really generic upgrade, downgrade type notes, it's going to be really hard for people to keep up with what's happening, what's changing in Pokemon Unite. Without doing without going in and checking themselves, which takes a long time and is a very involved process. So
fire your translator, get a new one.
Yeah. So hopefully we see better patch notes in the future. Yeah. But it is something to keep in mind if you are interested in seeing the latest patch notes.
Or learn Japanese. Just do what JSide did. Learn Japanese.
Learn Japanese. I do speak Japanese, but it is just as easy to go to the Pokemon Unite Japanese website. Use the Google Translate and just take the entire page link and put it into Google Translate, and you can see everything translated into English. Some of the move names and Pokemon names are a little different, of course, but you will see generally you should be able to figure out what is changed and who is changing. So I recommend that if you are interested in patch notes. Just a little thing that maybe a lot of people didn't realize. But all we know right now is that what we're getting is not as detailed as we would like it to be. And we're hoping that even more than the Japanese patch notes, it gets more detailed and that we get actual numbers, right? Percentages, base attack damages, things like that tell us what bugs were fixed, right? Those things are really important to us as the players who play the game every day. And we want to know, how is this going to affect us, right? How does this help us? How does this hurt us when we're playing our favorite Pokemon? So let's hope that they are able to eventually fix those that information that's given to us through this game. Yeah. So that's basically, that's basically the podcast. Whew. We did it. We got to the end. So we talked about, just as a quick recap, we talked about some common complaints and our opinions on them from the community. We talked about quality of life changes that we want to see, and we talked about the patch notes. right? And so Pokemon Unite is a lot of fun. We believe it has so much potential to become a very accessible MOBA for everybody, whether it's their first one or whether they played League of Legends for 10 years and now they're here. We hope that they continue, they meaning the developers of Pokemon Unite, hope that they continue to listen to fan feedback and improve the overall game balance and fairness so that being competitive becomes that much more enjoyable. The game as is, minus the pay to win aspect, is already great for a casual audience with quick battles and standard battles. We are having fun. We're having fun playing every day. We're hoping that you guys can have fun with this game. We hope that everybody that's here to listen to this podcast, if you made it this far, thank you so much. We hope that you are enjoying Pokemon Unite and that we want to help by giving you any information and our thoughts on Pokemon Unite as possible. As things happen, Pokemon Unite feels like it's going to have a long history from here on out. So hopefully we'll be right there with you to kind of, experience it with you.
Yeah.
So any final thoughts, Andrew?
Yeah, I actually have one that's like super important for maybe not everyone out there, but if you've got friends who live overseas, this is one of the best games you could find to play with them. And I'm going to tell you this why. Most MOBAs you find have really bad lag issues. Like, I used to play Mobile Legends a little bit with my family. When I lived in Japan, I just moved back like literally this past weekend to the United States. And I used to play Mobile Legends with my family because there was no server limitations like League of Legends. And, we like to play MOBAs together. But it had some really bad lag issues. And I was a little bit worried that when I started playing Pokemon Unite in Japan with my friends there, I wasn't going to be able to play with them again when I moved back to States. But then I tested it with my friend who's known as Elvire. And while I was still in Japan, he was on East Coast United States. No lag. We had no problems. And this past week, I've been playing with JSide, who's currently in Japan still, and some other friends in Japan, and it's been no problem. It's been great. So it's an amazing MOBA that has good servers that you can play with anyone around the world, it seems. So please don't ruin this Pokemon Company in Tencent with your pay-to-win crap. This is a really good game that you guys got, a good fan base that you guys could have, and this could be one of the biggest MOBAs out there. Just with the big, wide range of audience they could reach out to, because it's Pokemon. It's Pokemon. Like, come on.
Right? It's Pokemon. Come on. Exactly. All right. So, guys, thank you so much for joining us for this episode. And feel free to join us for our next episode, which is we want to talk about our tier list. We want to talk about how we rank Pokemon in the game currently. And how we want to talk about how the patch that we just talked about the notes for feels on live servers, how it changes the game. Do less people pick Gengar, etc., etc. So we'll see how it goes. We'll try to get another episode out later this week. And hopefully, if you guys enjoyed our content, subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you are listening. Thanks for listening and keep on uniting.
Thank you guys and see you next time.
Peace.